This is Jerry Mason, the Kickin Lawyer, and I'm inviting everyone to join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m. on the Kickin Lawyer fan page on Facebook for Law Talk Live, where we discuss business, politics, current events, and the law. If you miss the live version, you can watch the playback on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast platform. Right. So we had some technical difficulties. If anybody was watching earlier, I apologize, but I think we've got them fixed now. If you do get on this, and I'll wait a few minutes to ask, but okay, I see somebody on. If you're on and you can hear us, let us know. We were on there for like 30 minutes, and we were literally discussing how to solve all of world's problems, and then we find out like 20-something minutes in that you guys couldn't hear us. So anyway, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. We're on TikTok. The Covington Comic-Con is returning to Covington August 20th and 21st. Tickets are available now for sale at the law firm, and then next week it'll be the law firm and at Theo and Rose. Love to have you guys come out. It's a lot of cool events with that. Of course, our longtime sponsor and friend, Michelle Allen. She's your go-to realtor if you're buying, selling, renting real estate in the area. She can help you out. If you'd like to become a Kickin Lawyer yourself, visit Mason's High Octane Martial Arts. It's been in Covington since '93, making champions and kicking lawyers alike. We're glad to have you guys there. I will be at the Cellar Restaurant and Prohibition Bar tonight at 6:30 to do trivia. Of course, you can come in. It opens every day at 4, and there's all kinds of different events. There's live music this weekend, but hopefully I'll see some of you guys tonight at trivia. And, of course, Masonite Digital Marketing will help you if you need help with your online presence, social media marketing, all that good stuff. Now, again, joining me is Mr. Bryan Holland, who is an attorney and a new attorney with our firm, Huffman Mason Attorneys, here in Covington and in Somerville. And, Bryan, again, I'm glad to have you.
Absolutely.
And
it's a great second appearance.
I know. We had this, like, the greatest conversation ever for the last 26 minutes, and then we find out that it wasn't broadcasting any sound, didn't record any sound. So again, for those who stuck with us for those few minutes, I apologize.
What's weird is we had a couple of people who were in there the entire time. I guess they just like looking at y'all.
Thank you to those few. And the two worst days in human history: the day when the Library of Alexandria burned, and August 2nd, 2020.
When they didn't get your. We were talking about so many important things.
We were. World hunger had been solved. Cancer.
Yeah,
conflict.
It was literally a nerd fest between us talking about sci-fi books and movies and stuff. But it was some good stuff. And then also Bryan had told us kind of how he got into law and stuff like that. But we can rehash a few things.
Absolutely.
All right, so we were talking about sci-fi books and whatnot, but let's shift to like history stuff.
Sure.
Because you said you read nonfiction also.
What era do you want to talk about?
Well, I just whatever. What's your go-to, or do you rotate?
I do rotate because
That's
I
how I
mean,
am.
you know, 7th grade you wore World War II out, 8th grade you wore the Civil War out, 10th grade you go, well, World War I will be fun. And then you get to college, and that's when you lose most of them. You start having to take college history courses. But, oh, man, I went all over on that, too. I took History of Civilizations and Sailing. Which was
sailing.
Yes. I had a professor.
Very important, though, on the growth and development of society.
This professor owned just a little catamaran down at the Ross Barnett Reservoir in Jackson. And he wanted an excuse to sail it. So he pitched this idea to the school, and he got some upper-level history students to get on board with it. And we did legitimately study the Carthaginians, the Phoenicians, the Vikings, the spread of civilization, how it develops near the water, how the ocean plays. And then we would spend half of our class time out on the reservoir on catamarans.
Sweet. That sounds like a good excuse to get on the water. It was great.
And it just taught me mostly how to sail.
Well, that's good. I don't know how to sail.
Not a lot of history, but it did teach me that there is no era where you cannot find some fun stuff to learn.
Yeah. So I have bounced all over the place. I've gone through the American Revolutionary period. There was a long time, and I still circle back to that. I'm very interested in that time span. And then ancient history, like the Greeks, the Romans, and then sort of a focus on the Spartans.
Okay, so we got like the mid-modern, post-Bronze Age history.
Yeah.
Any
And then
Gilgamesh?
So I got a little bit into some like Scandinavian history. I got a little bit into some Middle Eastern history,
But
like
not a lot of Sumerian, Mesopotamia.
not that. No, I haven't really gone that far back on most of what I personally researched. I have gone further than that, like on early man, like
Yes.
like the development of that. But then like some of those early cultures, no, I haven't.
I mean,
haven't
they,
gotten
they
into.
didn't leave a lot. So
Yeah, now my wife's big on those. She has these theories, and she don't like me bringing this stuff up because it makes her sound kind of weird. But it is what it is. But she does. She believes that there have been ancient civilizations that were more advanced than our civilization, and just through eons of time,
very biodegradable plastics.
It may be,
Yeah.
It may be that they just don't exist anymore. And they have found, cities and stuff that in just a few hundred years have been overtaken by the jungle and things. So I guess there's some evidence of that. But
I mean,
I don't know that they were flying around in spaceships and stuff,
Yeah, but I mean, there are multiple periods of history, especially in the Fertile Crescent, where you had a civilization that was almost to the scale of a Carthage or an early Rome that was wiped out by the next one. You had the, Byzantine, no, not Byzantines.
Well, you were
had
just talking about when the library of Alexandria, when it was burned down. Supposedly there were just all kinds of documents, secrets, things that were lost.
I mean,
to
that
time.
was apparently where almost all of known writing had been culminated to that point.
Yeah.
And backups are not a common thing, unfortunately. So we
More,
have no
more
idea.
recently, I started reading. It kind of initially started with reading like Old West sort of stuff. Like I read
Some Louis L'Amour.
no, what is the name of that book? It's about the Comanches. It's really good. It's about I can't think of the guy's name, but it's a really good book. It details basically the last stand of the Comanches in the Old West. But that ended up leading me to reading about the samurai in the 1600s and 1700s because I was big into that anyway because of martial arts.
And a great Tom Cruise movie.
But yeah. Well, but so like I got real deep recently. I've been real deep in like what were the samurai really like?
Yes.
And so what I found was actually disappointing. They were originally, prior to like the 1600s, they were just warriors. And they were kind of crude warriors too.
Yes.
They were.
I mean, they were your enforcers.
Yeah. They weren't all philosophical and this duty and honor and loyalty. That developed out of necessity to try to prove why they should stay in some rank and class above other people.
Yes.
Is to show that they were full of honor and they had this code and all that kind of stuff.
It is really interesting how European culture and Eastern culture developed those organically, almost separate from each other. The knight class and the samurai class and the feudal system. It's almost like it was kind of pre-programmed for us, a natural idea.
That's another thing I've read a lot on is medieval history in Europe and then Vikings, specifically Vikings.
Or how we have pyramids on complete opposite sides of the planet.
Yes.
For some reason.
Well, that's also, though, a very stable structure.
I mean,
if you're building stuff and math is math, I don't know about the arguments that we got. They had some communication because of where they're located.
Well, I'm still waiting on that 2013 calendar issue to drop, but
well, every year they readjust that to be like, well, it was really this calendar they should have used.
those
They were just
Mayans
now
were
coming
smart,
up on
man.
it.
That's convenient.
Yeah, well, that's modern humans. You're going to twist the facts to fit your narrative.
Absolutely.
That's what a lot of people do now.
How do you prove a point otherwise?
Yeah. So what are you reading right now? Anything in particular?
Let's see. Right now, there is a James Rollins series that I've been working my way through. He does historical fictions, takes actual historical events, and then kind of gives them that paranormal or science fiction-y twist to them. I call it my light reading. I turn my brain off and read stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of history, I tried picking up the 700-page Douglas MacArthur biography that I had to read for school because I wanted to dip back into him. He's a very interesting character, but that was a little more than I felt like doing in my free time.
I just finished Miracle Morning, a book. It's real short, but I read it on the plane when we were doing San Diego, but it was talking about how you can change your life if you just get up an hour earlier. and then it grows into these steps you do in the morning to have a more productive life. So I read a lot of that kind of stuff. I read business books, and then I mostly read history, and it's mostly nonfiction. I don't read a whole lot of like we were talking. That's how we got on the tangent. Is I was trying to think of the last nonfiction book that I had read, and it was 1984. And then we got to talking about Dune and
which I don't know. That might be a little more fiction than nonfiction, you know.
Yeah. No, it kind of goes right along in lines with things. I know I did just, let me see what you think about this. And I don't know if anybody that's watching some of you watch me on Kickin Lawyer, some of you are my Facebook friend or whatever. But I made a post a couple days ago that has had a ton of comments, which has led me to think that maybe I need to have some of these people on that are making all these comments to discuss it. But what I basically said, I posted a picture of 2 books that I started reading.
Okay.
One was on the rise of Putin in Russia, and the other one was on it's What is a Woman? I forget the name of the book, but it's the book that goes along with the documentary that everybody's watching.
The Matt Walsh book.
Yeah, it's a Matt Walsh book. So I hadn't seen the documentary, but I got the book. So here was my problem. The problem wasn't the subject matter of each book. The problem was both books were biased. As soon as I started reading the Putin book, the guy was immediately crapping all over Donald Trump, that Putin was all Donald Trump, even though Putin's been in power since 99, potentially longer unofficially, but it's Donald Trump's fault. And I'm like, no. And then the other book was basically immediately dogging on anybody that even asked the question, what is a woman? You know, and my point in reading the book wasn't that I agree that people can be trans or whatever. My point was I like to understand why people think those things or think differently than me. And I wanted hard information on it, and I thought it would maybe do like an unbiased view would and compare the 2 sides, right? And instead, it was just one that was crapping on the other side, which, you know, it's fine. I think that's how the book was supposed to be. But my point was, and what caused a lot of the controversy, was that I said that I wanted information I wanted the information. You know, I want to be trusted with the data, with the information, and then I can make my own assessment of my own opinion in that specific subject matter. And a lot of people said they would recommend books that were like that and struggled with it because we just don't get that nowadays.
Well, I would argue that really it's impossible because you have a bias no matter how much you try to fight it. And that bias is going to show up even if by the slightest degree in anything you do. And I don't know if one person can put forward a completely unbiased opinion on something that's very divisive.
Sure.
I think that it would take a community collective effort to put forward something like that. And unfortunately, these days, especially with the way that we're engaged online, and it's a very personal one-on-one or one-on-everyone engagement online, it lowers the likelihood that you could get a collective together to truly bring you unbiased information.
Well, one thing I will say, because I was just thinking through what my counterpoint would be to what you said, is, you know, we've always had bias to some degree, even if it's in history where the victor is writing history, right? And so, but even now we're starting to uncover some truths that counter what
conventional knowledge.
Yeah, conventionally what we thought was a fact. So I just want the facts, and I kind of circle back to the whole Walter Cronkite. Was it Cronkite? Yeah, he was the whole. This is the story, or the whole story, or whatever his saying was, right? Back in the day, though, he'd give you the facts. That's what he gave you. He gave you the facts, and then you could make your own assessment. I guess I just don't want all these op-eds.
Right.
Trust me with the information.
And I guess my biggest beef is they don't even pretend. Like, at least in the 2010s, 2010, there was an effort to kind of mask your opinion. You still had it, and you still made it known. But you would, politely mask it.
Yeah,
to
a lot
extent.
of the media, like CNN.
Now
you would try to turn to
my
CNN.
opinion, and whether it be a Fox News, a CNN, an MSNBC, or whatever outlet you choose, everyone's wearing their biases on their sleeve now, and it's like, at least pay it lip service.
Well, and I'm not opposed to people having bias. I mean, we as lawyers deal with that a lot, especially in jury trials. Everybody's got a bias, and you just got to help point that out and hope that it doesn't cloud their judgment. But at the same time, there has to be facts too. There's facts on both sides.
Right.
It's either this way or it's that way. And I think, I'm curious as you went through law school, because you went a little later than I did, one of the problems that I had in law school was, and of course, keep in mind, I'm older than you are, and I'd been a cop a long time, and so I knew I was biased going in. But because of that, it seemed very left slanted to me in law school.
And I will say, so I had the please no one take this wrong. I had the privilege of watching President Donald Trump be elected my last year of law school and watching the meltdown of academia live.
Nice.
And I have to say that unanimously, my professors were very displeased with the outcome of the election. And I think that is just a hallmark of academia these days.
I think it's kind of always been that way.
It has.
Yeah, but you would like to think that our smartest people are most open, you know,
Yes.
to to new information.
Well, unfortunately, what I've learned in higher education, especially on the educator's side, is that it is a game, and it's a political game like anything else. And regardless of your political ideology, the cream doesn't really rise to the top a lot in academia these days. It feels like there are too many roadblocks in place for really good teachers to get tenure or to get to the tenure track because they're a little too invested. And, you know, colleges are not charities, they're not nonprofits, let's be real. Even your state colleges are a for-profit entity to an extent. And if you're not helping the bottom line, you're not moving ahead.
Yeah.
And I think that's really doing our academic education in the United States a disservice.
I'm just surprised by how many left-leaning, sort of liberal-minded colleges are out there in areas that are still conservative politically.
I attended a Baptist Christian college in Jackson, Mississippi, and I had a conservative political science professor, and then most of the other humanities professors were liberal-leaning.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of a hallmark of academia, regardless of school location or school type.
I mean, I went to Dyersburg State Community College right here in Tipton County. I went to the Jimmy Naphy Center, and I had several professors that were very liberal, and that's kind of surprising because, I mean, we're in Tipton County, you know. It's very
Well,
right-wing
and
area.
I try to not knock, you know, whether you're left-leaning or right-leaning. It's more the facts to me. I mean, I've been very vocal about that, and to some degree to my own detriment, I think, because I'm very open about how I stand politically. But I'm open to people having different opinions. It's like this whole "what is a woman" thing from that documentary. Even on the post that I made, there was a couple of guys that, and I know them real well. They're good people, and they weren't really attacking me, but they were indirectly. They were being passive aggressive. They were like, "If you have to ask, it's
Their
because it's
sensibilities
clear."
have been offended somewhat.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, like, I get that that's the opinion of people, but there are people that think this other way.
Well,
And so why do you think this other way? I want to understand that, because they're not idiots. I don't think that I mean, there's clearly plenty of idiots in the world, right? I mean, we represent some of them. But my point was, I want to understand the reasoning, how they get to, we have the same information in front of us, but they see this, and then I see this. You know what I mean?
And I think there's like a few core fundamental beliefs people have that I think are the real litmus test. The one that I've found to be really consistent is whether they say the truth or your truth.
Oh, okay, because then it's subjective or objective.
Right, and that changes how I know their outlook on things are going to be. Because this whole "what is a woman" argument, the legal field, for everyone else listening, this is an interesting thing for us because there are so many factors at play that are going to affect things that you would never even think about. Be it some kind of archaic things we have in divorce where we still have a very sexist system in some aspects.
Tennessee especially.
Yeah. So, I mean, as an intellectual, I'm very interested to see how this plays out because I want to know, you know, how the law is going to logically reason through some of these because that's our job, right?
Yeah.
Is to the core, it's supposed to be to logically reason out problems and find the most
Well, and I
equitable
think
answer.
that's where some people hit the roadblock because, especially in the Bible Belt here, a lot of people base their sort of their life compass and what they feel about issues that maybe aren't religious, but they base it on religion. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. We are probably very similar in that it's a very logic-based, how do I reason this based on, and then similarly in law school, you learn to argue both sides and to value both sides because if your argument is whatever it is, whatever you believe, you know, you say Santa Claus wears a red suit and somebody else says he wears a white suit. Well, you have to understand why they argue what they argue to either support your argument or attack their argument.
I think one of the biggest things law school teaches you is to learn to not be offended by opinions.
Yeah. Yeah, is let people have their own opinion. And it doesn't mean we can't be friends.
Right.
I have several people right now that I'm very close to that don't agree with me on a whole lot of fundamental issues. I mean, even to the point of atheists and things, you can still be and you can learn from them, and vice versa. But I guess like things on like abortion and issues like that, I analyze them from a legal perspective, and I think, and part of the reason is, in any argument, you know, whether it's religious folks, that's their driving force, or you know, it's non-religious folks, so they're just focused on like women's rights or whatever. I think if you use a law-based logic argument, it can help both of them come to the table.
Right.
Instead of, if I immediately start with, well, God says da-da-da, and that's not your stance, now I've completely alienated you.
Right. I mean, a lot of it, people have lost the ability, and I think this is across the board, being able to be politely persuasive is just a lost art. Disappeared.
I don't know, y'all. I really like this idea, though, that we've come into this new age now where everybody can just kind of say or be whatever they want. Like, for example, I think y'all heard this past week that the Biden administration redefined what a recession is. So recession used to be, you know, ...
2 consecutive quarters. And now it's whatever.
And now it's whatever it needs to be to suit their agenda. So I made the decision. I like this idea. I think it's a great idea. I think he's a great president making this decision. So I decided that I'm going to identify as a multi-millionaire. And I'm going to need everyone, because I'm going to redefine what a millionaire is to what I am.
And the IRS is going to do that too.
Yeah, but see, I can also redefine the tax brackets, though.
Yes.
So, because, I mean, if we can redefine the definition of recession, I can redefine what a millionaire is to suit me. And
Look, as a lawyer, it's I mean, this is just open season now. You can literally never commit a crime.
We can just be whatever we want, guys.
I actually respect that. You know, Biden didn't come up with that, but
His administration did.
Whoever come up with that, I think it's smart.
Yeah.
Move the goalpost anytime you can.
If you're losing, move the goalpost, and he does.
And that's every administration has done that to some extent.
Yeah. It's not a Republican Democrat thing.
We like to, if we don't like who's in power or like them, we ignore it or
change the narrative.
But moving the goalposts is just the best way to win an argument, because all I need to do is just kick that can down the road until I get favorable conditions.
Yeah. I do think it strikes to a larger argument, though, on are there absolute truths? Because if you redefine things like that have pretty much been standard for so long, now there's an argument of, well, what's an absolute truth?
Well, let's get even deeper than that. I mean, if you want to get into string theory and quantum physics, then everything is both true and not true simultaneously, and nothing exists.
Is the cat is alive and dead at the same time?
Schrodinger's cat paradox.
I used to read that. So believe it or not, I wanted to be. We were talking before the sound didn't work on if you always wanted to be a lawyer and things. So, and I don't know that I've told people this, but I wanted to be an astrophysicist growing up. That was my goal.
Sheldon Big
Bang
Theory?
Yeah, I read Stephen Hawking. I read everything Einstein did. I read whatever I could get my hands on. I loved the theoretical physics stuff. The problem I found is as I got a little older, I just did not have the aptitude for math.
Right.
Just couldn't do the math. And so I realized in high school that maybe astrophysics was not going to be the route that I'd get to go.
I spent a little time delving into that subject, but not for the same reason. It was actually because we had gotten into an argument with my college roommates about gravity. Mm-hmm. Was it a theory or was it a law? And I was kind of getting my butt kicked because I was a political science major, and that was the wrong science.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a law, right? It's been tested.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of
Did you know Bryan's a physicist? Other Bryan?
I did not.
Yeah,
I became an amateur quantum physicist in order to populate the argument.
We should get Bryan in on that. He knows all about it. He was his undergrad is in physics.
Oh, good. Then he can go over our heads in about 12 seconds.
Oh yeah, no, man. You get him going down a rabbit hole, he can definitely go. But yeah, I read it. I was all into all that stuff. Plus, it's just kind of cool.
It is.
The whole string theory and multi dimensions and wormholes and black holes and the whole deal.
Anytime your Marvel movie can teach you a little something about practical physics, I mean, two birds, one stone. You're really
I did listen.
Left, right?
So a lot of times when I'm driving, I listen to podcasts. And I listen to, you know what? I was just listening to it today. I was
going to say, what are the podcasters' podcast recommendations?
Yeah, well, there's really two main ones that I listen to. I listen to Joe Rogan, and I listen to Lex Friedman. That was the one that I was trying to think of. So Lex Friedman is a AI. I think he's really like an engineer, but he's real smart on all kinds of stuff. So like he knows. He talks about not just artificial intelligence, but space travel and if there were aliens, and then philosophical stuff. And he was born I don't want to butcher it. It's a Slavic nation. I'm not sure it was Russia. It might have been the Ukraine, but he was born around there, so he's fluent in Russian.
From the East.
Correct, and but he's an American. And so he has a really interesting perspective on just everything.
Yeah.
He's also a jiu-jitsu black belt. He trains in jiu-jitsu, so I can relate to him.
We won't hold that against him.
But anyway, Lex Friedman's great, and he was interviewing Elon Musk. He's done it like 3 times, and they were talking today about space travel. And he was talking about the practicality of what Elon Musk believed on if we would ever get like warp drive, or you could warp space and these kind of things.
Right.
And he was like, well, right now, that's just not even in the wheelhouse of possibilities under physics. And so what he's focusing on is trying to get a reusable rocket that's cost effective, that per ton is something that we can afford.
Baby steps.
Yeah. So he didn't really even address the issue because it's like irrelevant to him.
It is. I mean, it is, because the whole faster than light travel thing, what blew my mind recently is it dawned on me is that if you're 60,000 light years away on a planet and you point a telescope at Earth, you're going to see dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Because the images you see are the light that's been traveling for the last 60,000 years.
Yeah.
So once it dawned on me that that's how travel works in space.
Well, they might not see dinosaurs though, because they're 65 million years. Yeah. But
yes.
you would see they would see mammoths and saber-toothed tigers and stuff.
Some
right?
hunter-gatherers, perhaps.
Yeah, they'd see some naked dudes hanging out.
Maybe a loincloth if we're feeling bashful.
Yeah. But you're right. It's looking back in time.
Yeah,
it's almost a way to time travel. So,
which was an Ender's Game, where they actually wrote in the time travel paradox at the end of the book.
Ender's Game. I might have read that one. Did you ever see or read Logan's Run?
Logan's Run.
It's where they were, when they hit like 25, they get killed. They have a jewel that changes colors.
Yes,
I think it was an early 70s sci-fi movie. And then they sort of redid it in the 90s.
I think I watched the 70s version with my old man at some point.
Yeah.
That sounds...
Well, it's another interesting... There's a whole lot of sci-fi stuff out there. I tell you what, I read... what was the name of that one? It was either H.G. Wells or Jules Verne novel that's not well known, but it was about this vehicle they'd created. This is, of course, pre-cars or anything.
This is definitely a
right?
Jules Verne then.
Yeah, and it traveled like 60 miles an hour. And in their description of this vehicle, I find it very interesting when you read or can see how people thought or analyzed their world at the time.
And got it right.
Well, sometimes got it right, but sometimes more like why they thought this was a dragon, or why they, because their perception is based on their reality right then.
Once you have an understanding.
So they see this vehicle that does like 60 miles an hour, and they think it's like so fast at 60 they can't even see it. Like it's like this blur.
Right.
From their perception, because nothing did 60 miles an hour.
Because you topped out at 18 when you had the good horse at that point.
Yeah. So the thought process of this guy in a vehicle that would go that fast was just phenomenal. It's just interesting the way they thought about stuff back then.
Which I think they worked that into the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
They may have. I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
Well,
that's probably a Josh favorite. It's his genre.
I love.
I mean, they took Jules Verne's works and they just threw them all in that movie.
Yeah. He's got some really good stuff too. I mean, I really liked it, and it's even influenced people today. A lot of modern sci-fi writers
were way ahead of their time.
If I can recommend one, The Mysterious Island by Jules Verne is it's connected to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea vaguely, but it's its own standalone novel, and I think maybe better than anything else he wrote.
Yeah, I haven't read that one.
It's your Robinson Crusoe mixed with Jules Verne.
Yeah, I read a whole lot of that stuff. I read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Journey to the Center of the Earth, The Time Machine,
War of the Worlds.
Yeah, War of the Worlds. There's a whole bunch through
Dorian
there.
Gray.
Journey. What was it? What was the one around the world in 80 days?
Journey around the world in 80 days.
Whatever it was. I read that one
with Jackie Chan.
Yeah, exactly. I saw the movie. It had Jackie Chan, so I loved it. So, hey, speaking of that, will you work out, martial arts, anything like that?
I have not seen the inside of a gym since the Bush administration.
Yeah. Well, you thought about making that a requirement, that everybody here got to go get jacked.
I did. So, in college, I did take Intro to Karate. And our instructor was the chief of police in town. And we had some classes canceled for some spectacular reasons. He apologized to us because there was a bank robbery, and he had to cancel class. And we were like, that's okay.
Justified.
You're good. But then he also just casually mentioned that when he was in the Marine Corps, he was in Chuck Norris's class. They were students together, he taught So they had the same instructor.
Oh, that's cool.
So I guess you could say I am an extension of Chuck Norris.
Nice.
In his educational coaching tree, so to speak. So.
Yeah. You have the same martial arts family tree as him, as Chuck Norris.
Yeah, and so I don't know if where do you go from there?
I don't know. I mean, I guess, you'd have to go to, he actually, I think, teaches in Texas now, so maybe you can go there and
go from the source. Once you're on the mountaintop, you
can't come off of it.
Come down.
Yeah, no, I heard Chuck Norris is actually pretty good. I've met several of the ones that people think of when they think of, like I've met Jackie Chan.
You've met the movie famous.
I've met a lot of those, yeah.
Which I'm sure, technically speaking, are probably not the greatest.
Some are. Some you'd be surprised. But it's different than, it all depends on what the goal is in martial arts. The way I look at it is you've got people that do martial arts for the art side of it. That's the main focus.
Taekwondo guys.
Yeah, and then you got, Taekwondo can be.
It can be
brutal. I used it in combat, but you have to have a base of knowledge of reality combat to use it. If you're just doing like point sparring doesn't necessarily mean you can fight. And then you need to understand ranges of combat too. So even though you may not want to do jiu-jitsu, you need to learn basic takedowns and defense to takedowns.
Otherwise, you're going to be on the ground with your leg broken.
Yeah, potentially. Right. So I think that there are people that do, like Tai Chi and stuff like that, Aikido, traditional karate, some of those systems that maybe aren't immediately street lethal. But then you got some people nowadays that are just focused on the martial side. They just want to do kickboxing,
get out of this situation
jiu-jitsu, Krav Maga, these kind of systems that are more street systems. So like my school, what we teach, and you're welcome to come participate, is a hybrid of that. They start as a traditional martial artist. So what I've found, because I taught MMA for 20 years. I fought professionally, did kickboxing, MMA, the whole deal. So I know, and I was a cop and fought. Anyway, so I understand how, you got martial arts and you got street self-defense, and then I got to know how to fight a knife guy, all these things that work in together, right? So what I found, though, is if I take a guy or girl, and or Z or whatever their pronoun is, and I teach them to do just MMA stuff. So they do kickboxing and jiu-jitsu. 6-8 months, they could probably defend themselves, but they don't become necessarily a better person. Well, they may be lethal, but they don't get life skills. They don't develop their self-discipline, their confidence, their self-control, their self-esteem, their integrity. Whereas if I take a person in traditional martial arts and they train 6, 8, 10 months, they actually develop. They may not be as lethal in combat, but they've developed skills
as a human
that'll
being,
help them as a better,
more complete than
correct.
They were.
And so then if you take them 2 or 3 years down the road, then we do give them those other tools, the actual reality combat stuff. So now I have a person that's a good person with self-control and is going to be a good citizen in life and not just try to go whip people, who also can whip people.
Oh, well then, you should never teach me anything.
That's the way we do it.
The only reason I want to go is so that I can just break somebody's arm for fun at a party.
Yeah, well, that's why you need self-control.
So I have to ask, if you are, and not if, because you are the martial arts guy, is the scene from Indiana Jones with the whip cracker just like your least favorite scene of all time?
No, I think it's cool.
Okay.
That's what I would do too.
I just wanted to clarify.
No, it's actually very smart, because a lot of people would be like, I'm going to show this guy and whip him. But he was like, you know what? He's going to whip me. I'm just going to shoot him.
Right.
I'm cool with it.
I feel bad for that guy learning that choreography for no reason.
Yeah.
But
no, it was a show off. It was good.
Yeah. It was.
So I used to be real biased in martial arts. In the 80s and early 90s, when you came up, you didn't do multiple systems. You were a Japanese practitioner,
Yes.
a Korean practitioner, and you didn't like people that were outside of your wheelhouse.
Even then, it seems to me like it was not even just one area, but one discipline in that area.
Yeah, and then it was looked down on if you tried to cross-train back
Right.
then. But then the 90s with UFC coming in and then MMA gaining prevalence in the United States, people started to open their eyes and be like, why am I holding myself into this one area when
Right.
there's so much more out there?
It's
and then
amazing.
Bruce Lee said in a book called Tao of Jeet Kune Do, if you like reading, you ought to read it. It's a philosophical book on martial arts, really good. It's Tao, Tao, pronounced Tao or Dio, depending on if it's Chinese or Korean. But anyway, Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and it's sort of his treatise on martial arts from his perspective. And he said there were 4 ranges of combat that everybody should be proficient in. And that was kicking, punching, trapping, and grappling. And so what I teach is those 4 plus 1. We teach weapons. So we teach you gun, disarm, stick fighting, knife fighting, all that stuff too.
Because look, and I think a lot of it comes from nothing tightens up a focus like the crucible of combat.
Mm-hmm.
And MMA did everyone, I think, a huge service, because it did teach you, hey, if you only stick to one thing, I don't care how good you are at it, I only have to learn 2 or 3 things in another style, and I can combat that.
Yeah.
And it's taking all martial combats and I think sharpening them.
Well, I have a rule for people when they're like, well, I want to train this or I want to train that. Any system, at some point, you have to get punched in the face.
Yep.
If they don't punch you in the face, then they can't really tell you they're teaching you self-defense and stuff. Because you've got to, it's kind of like as a cop. When I was a cop, when we would go through chemical weapon training, pepper spray, they would spray us. Well, the manufacturer said don't spray them, and I found out when I went through the instructor portion that the manufacturer said don't spray people, that you don't spray till you're using it as a use of force, right? And so then you got to think, well, why do you spray the cops? Well, one, it's a rite of passage, it's kind of like, but 2, they need to know how it feels, so when it happens in the real life, they know how they're going to react to the spray in real life. So similarly, if you've never been punched in the face, you don't know how you're going to react getting punched in the face. And so I think everybody should be punched in the face at some point.
You know what Tyson says. Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
Brian Huffman just walked in. We were talking about you, Brian.
Good.
Yeah. What's up?
It's all bad stuff.
No, we got talking about physics for a little bit. And I was like, well, Brian is actually a physicist.
What's your question?
So,
string theory.
No, well, one of them he said was, well, what is, he said he had a debate years ago with his roommates over whether the gravity was a law or a theory.
Technically, it's a law. The law of gravity.
And I did
That's what I
lose that
said.
argument.
I thought it was a law.
9.8 meters per second per second.
I don't know. Can you hear him, Josh?
Kinda. He needs to lean in closer.
Here was
I
my
don't
brilliant
know if
idea.
that mic is working.
I discovered that if you become an expert on quantum mechanics, that you're simultaneously wrong and right at the same time, and you can never lose an argument.
Well, that's the
You can't
Schrodinger's cat theory, I suppose.
Just convoluted the law just
Of course.
a little bit.
No, I had a class on quantum mechanics, and it was the first test where I literally looked at every single question on the final exam. Had no idea.
I mean, isn't that the point?
Yes, I mean, quantum mechanics is it's so 90s. Single point theory is really where they're going, and plus the quantum entanglement. Well, the Large Hadron Collider at CERN has opened up and has thrown us into bizarro world universe.
And that was recently in the last 2 or 3 years that they made some big breaks on that, wasn't it?
Yes, they did. They found the God particle.
That's right. I do recall that.
Well, a lot of people, including your brother, think that they literally split the line, like we're in some alternate.
It's always a possibility.
Now.
You never know. I mean,
Because now the theory is we're living in a simulation.
I miss that old 60s idea that when you shrunk down to the size of an atom, that was just its own universe that the Fantastic Four could fight in.
Well, it's also
that was the fun one.
That's possibly true, because what if, our entire universe is literally the atom of one giant being,
like the end of The Grinch with Jim Carrey when it was just in a snow globe,
or the the discussion in Animal House.
Oh, even better. Tell there's a little age range here.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I told him that he had to get you to go down some rabbit holes with him because he liked that kind of stuff. And
of course.
You knew all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So,
seems like we were quite capable of doing so pretty quickly.
And I wish Brian had joined us sooner because I was about to wrap us up so I can head to the cellar where all of you are welcome to come because at 6:30 we start trivia and it's working on 6. So I got to get there and set up. But that is the cellar located here in Covington, Tennessee. But I do want to thank Brian. One, I want to thank you for joining our team.
Absolutely.
Actually, I think you and I have a lot more in common now that we've had a second to talk than we thought we did. But you're already valuable, but I think you'll do nothing but grow in value. And hopefully we do the same thing for you. Hopefully that you feel like you have a home here and want to be with us, except maybe Brian, the other Brian.
Yeah.
No, Brian's getting along.
Quit giving my cell phone out to people, man. Somebody texted today and he said, Brian gave me your number.
And then I got blamed.
No, I didn't. I knew it wasn't you. I knew it was him, but...
I very rarely, if ever, give out.
Well, either
numbers.
way, I don't respond, so it doesn't matter. But it was like they said, Brian gave me your number.
It's not necessarily true, though.
Anyway,
One of these days, you're gonna learn that just because Mr. Huffman said X, Mr. Huffman said Y,
Does not mean Mr.
does
Huffman.
not mean that
but
Mr.
they
Huffman said
had
X
my
or
number.
Y.
They actually messaged me, so they had it.
Is it now a good time to admit that I write a cell phone number on $2 bills and just leave them laying around town?
Sure, why not?
That's fine. I'll take the money. I mean, if
Good luck
they
finding
call
them.
me and give it to me. It's fine.
There's 7 left.
Anyway, well, thank you, Bryan, for being on. Thank you guys for watching this
Absolutely.
long. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe across social media and podcast platforms. You saw the Covington Comic-Con is coming August 20th and 21st. Returning. Tickets are now available at Huffman Mason Law Firm, and then they will be available next week at the law firm and at Theo and Rose. You can pay $10 for one day or $15 and go both days. There's also a bunch of free events, so make sure you check out CovingtonComicCon.com or the Facebook page. We want to thank Michelle Allen, our longtime sponsor with Cry Like Realty. If you need anything in the realm of real estate, she'll be glad to help you out. And, of course, Mason's High Octane Martial Arts, located in Covington, Tennessee since 1993. We got a new location, going to another location in a minute. Now, actually, I'm proud. I'm proud that we've been doing it that long and been open. And look, this is a great little kicky guy. Look at that.
It's almost 30 years, Jerry.
And then Mason. Oh, and then the cellar. You know about that. 6:30 today. I'll be there for trivia. Friday we have live music. We got this no peak envelope thing coming up, so make sure you come check us out. Really good food. And then, of course, Masonite Digital Marketing will be glad to help you with your online presence, social media, websites, etc. So we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Who we got next Tuesday, Josh?
Next Tuesday is Mr. Kenneth Dunn, who's one of our sponsors for Covington Comic-Con.
Sweet. Yeah, he does art and stuff, right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So anyway, hopefully we'll see you guys then. Until then, keep kicking. Thanks for watching, guys. Just remember that this is not legal advice or investment advice or business advice. This is for fun and entertainment purposes only.